Ashley?
Councilor Powers. How are
Mr.
you, sir?
President. Yes, I'm fine.
Clerk Melnick is at City Hall. They're having an interruption in their internet service. So she has given me the green light to offer you to start the meeting. So
Okay.
Council Powers, would you like to start your meeting?
Do we have a quorum?
So in attendance, we have Councilors Jerry Visconti. Here or not here? Councilor Visconti? Here.
Sorry, here, I'm sorry.
Councilor Sereno?
Here, but I'm not a member of the committee.
Councilor McKenna? Councilor McKenna, are you on mute or can you speak in? Council President Keefe is here and he's an ex officio member. And Councilor Powers, you are here.
I'm here. Yes, I am. Okay.
And Councilor Janino.
Councilor Janino, I believe, is here.
Yeah, just waiting to hear her voice. She says she's here. Councilor Janino is here.
How
Okay,
about Councilor Zambudo?
we have a quorum. We can start. Councilor Powers. Councilor Zambudo is also here.
Well, let's start by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
The first department we're going to do is Human Services, the Public Health Initiatives. Is the director here? Hello?
Councilor Powers, if you could just let us know what page you're working off of?
Section 2, page 125.
Section 2, 125. All right. So it looks like, Councilor Powers, if we can skip to, we have the library here and we have the Director of Recreation here. Madam
All right.
Clerk needs to let these members in, so they're in the queue.
Okay,
So why don't we start with either the library or the Director of Recreation?
let's do the library. Section 2, page 143.
2, page 143. Okay. So that is the library.
Am I supposed to be looking at something?
Well, you have I assume you know your budget, correct?
Pardon me?
Okay.
Okay,
Chairman,
yes.
Chairman, do you know if Rich Rich Viscay, Mr. Viscay is going to be present. That might be helpful.
I'm not sure. He has been for the past two meetings, but
I would assume he's going to be present.
the librarian, you're the librarian? I haven't met you. That's why I'm asking. Okay.
Yep, that's Diana Luongo is the librarian.
Okay. We have
I'm told Ashley has to let Rich in.
Right, so Ashley's not here, Councilor Visconti, and we're waiting for her to get internet access so she can let people back in.
She's right here. She's on.
George from IT just gave me an Ethernet cable, so I'm hooked up the old fashioned way. Hold on.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna promoting everyone to a panelist. Hold on. Thank you. And I heard that City Hall is gonna be upgrading their Wi-Fi, which I'm pretty happy about.
I'll be happy too, I think.
I think you need new Wi-Fi at your house.
Yeah.
There we go.
So Madam Clerk, just to bring you up to
Yes.
speed, we had
Okay.
Councilor Janino, Councilor Zambuto, Councilor Visconti, Councilor Sereno, Councilor McKenna, and myself. Obviously, some are not members of the panel, of the committee. And since we're
Sorry.
going a little out of order,
I'm in now.
Councilor
I've been
Powers,
trying to get in too. Sorry, guys.
No, you guys were just waiting as attendees, so everyone's in now. Thank you for bearing with me.
Okay.
No worries.
Mr. Viscay, you're here to, on behalf of the administration, I would presume?
I'm here on behalf of the administration to help every department as they need help. I'm certainly willing to help Diana. I know she's a little green when it comes to this, but whatever order you're ready to take it in. I know Kim Hampton's on as well now, so whatever your desire.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the library budget. And of course, I see actually no changes whatsoever in the salary schedule other than part-time employees and overtime.
Yeah, I could get into the library budget a little bit.
Let's do it.
We're required by Mass General Law to fund the library at a certain level. It's considered the municipal appropriation requirement, which is a 3% increase every year, so we don't lose our funding. So this budget does comply with the MAC, as they call it. The budget is, again, it's as lean as it could be with regard to the minimum appropriation requirement. You will find that there's been library director is a vacant position. We've posted it a couple of times and we haven't had any success. So we have tweaked that salary up to hopefully find a new library director to take the helm over there. I guess we were under market there, so we weren't getting really any qualified individuals for that position. But Diana's been over there doing a great job in the interim, and any specific questions about library operations, I would defer to her. But as far as the finance part, I put this budget together and happy to answer any questions.
I see a reduction here going back to 2020 of 110,722.
Yeah, we go with the previous library director's budget was a little aggressive, and we had to bring it down. Again, we have to keep it within the confines of the MAR that's promulgated by the library trustees of the Commonwealth. So we won't lose any funding from the state with regard to our minimum appropriation requirement. And again, the budget is pretty lean otherwise. Not many line items other than the Noble Service library books that we buy and some small other expenses. So again, I'm here to answer any questions on the budget and particular operations. I'd defer to Diana.
Well, I think it's a very lean budget. I don't see anything that stands out. Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
John.
Okay, I don't see anything that really stands out. Diane, did you have any comments you'd like to make with regard to your budget or?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, all right.
It should be noted that Councillor Keefe is recused from discussion on this budget, please.
Okay, very good.
Councilor Sereno have a question?
Yes, Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Viskey. I'm sorry, I had just stepped away from my desk for a second, so I may have, you may have answered the question I'm about to ask, but under library supplies, the library requested 71,900 and the mayoral request is 99,000, a difference of 27,000. Can you explain why there's a greater allotment appropriation from the mayor versus the library request?
Sure. I was explaining earlier that there is a minimum appropriation requirement of the library that is to come in at 3% more than the prior year. So when we had some of our budget cuts and our part-timers removed from the budget, we found ourselves underneath that minimum appropriation requirement. So in order to make that whole, I put it in the library supplies item, line item, which is for the books and other periodicals for the library. There's also a 16% minimum expenditure needed on library books and supplies. And I know that Diana and her crew have been doing a little bit of a purging and upgrading over there. So I figured they could use a little bit more money for their library. But again, we could have put that money somewhere else, but I thought it would be best suited in the library supplies, again, just to try to stay within the MAR that's required.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Any other questions? Any councilors?
Councilors Keefe, Visconti, and Sereno have their hands raised, Councilor Powers.
Councilor Keefe, Mr. President.
I apologize. That was just from earlier. I am recused from this section of the budget, so no questions.
Okay, and who's next?
Councilor
Councilor-
Visconti?
Visconti, Councilor Visconti. Jerry?
Sure, you're
Yeah.
on mute.
I'm on mute. I apologize. Rich, I was just listening to what you said, and I had the similar question as Councilor Sereno. But we had some part-time salaries. We had part-time salaries that increased as well in that department. And were you saying that we laid off? Did we have some part-time employees there? I believe we did. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess I'm trying to understand the rationale here, and if you can bring some clarity to that, that would be great. We had some part-time employees there. We laid them off, okay, and part-time salaries have increased, okay, as well as the increase to library supplies. Is that correct? I'm just trying to
Yes.
find.
Yeah, that's correct. The bottom line budget, 608,000 is, like I said, we have a 3% minimum increase we're supposed to adhere to, so we don't lose our state funding. So when we did the budget and when we counted the heads of the people that worked in the library, I needed to up that appropriation by a few dollars to meet that minimum appropriation, and I put that money in the library supplies line, Council. As you know, the library is closed right now, so some of these part-timers are considered more furloughed than laid off because we await the opening of the library.
Okay, and is there any intention on bringing any of those part-timers back? Or is it?
Yeah, we have intention to bring them back. We also have some grant dollars that also allow for some supplemental hires. So it's really just a matter of trying to figure out when we're able to open that library up and get it back to fully staffed.
All right, great, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Any other
Sure.
councilors wishing to speak? Any other councilors?
No other councilors, Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we'll move on to
Hi, Diana.
Parks and Recreation. Page 147.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon yourself. Okay. The salary schedule is on page 149. If any counselors have any questions regarding that?
Hold on.
Hey, what's up? Oh,
Councilor Powers, are you there?
I'm here, yeah, I'm
May I
waiting.
ask a few questions?
Certainly, go right ahead.
Okay, well, one is, I don't really disguise it, but I think the Recreation Department's probably one of my preferred departments in the city. You should probably feel the same way I think you used to work there many years ago, Councilor.
Certainly do.
And obviously, it's a department that I have a lot of, because of our children, we have a lot of use out of in the involvement in many leagues. So I'm always encouraging to put more money in the youth services of the city, of course, and then the next one would be the senior services of the city. That will come later. But it looks like it's pretty lean and clean. I did speak offline with the Department of Recreation, and they felt it was appropriate levels of staffing. And I'm sure Mr. Hinojosa can speak for himself. But I did have one question to Mr. Hinojosa, and maybe you can answer, that I haven't gotten yet, was the janitorial overtime was I had some curiosity to do with that, and my custodial overtime was $70,000. So what does $70,000 for custodial overtime come out of?
So that's part of the new community center. So it costs us about $40,000 a year to run the community center in custodial overtime. The other 30,000 is just the programs that we do throughout the year when we're in gyms.
Right. So you said about 40,000 is for the school, the community school?
Correct, yes.
So that's at the Garfield?
And that's at the Garfield, correct.
So my curiosity, and I'm not sure if you can help out, Mr. Viscay, but why would we have, if we have a school, or a community school being used at a school, why would we require that to be an overtime charge? Why wouldn't we just staff a custodian year round at the hours of operation of the school, the community school?
Custodians are under the collective bargaining of the school department, and they govern how they operate there. So I'd have to defer to the superintendent on that, but I do know that those custodians, when they're working at the school and for those extracurricular activities, they require overtime pay, and basically it's a pass through. The schools will pay the custodians and pass that bill on to the recreation department, and we
Right.
make the transfer. So.
And I get it if there's random events, if, hey, Thursday night, we're going to have a basketball league that starts only in the fall. You can't hire a full-time member just to come in to work those 3 or 4 hours. But if we know Monday through Friday, year round, or, 40 weeks a year, we're going to have a position. Wouldn't it make sense to make that position maybe like 12 to 8 p.m. or something like that as a set standard position? Wouldn't that
It makes
make
sense. It makes sense to me, Counselor, but we don't oversee the custodians, and I don't collectively bargain with them. But your point's well taken. I don't have much to say about it because they're really not under our control, and we just kind of comply with what the superintendent requires us to do.
Okay. I just want to make it noted that, I understand, and I'm all for them getting some overtime. I think that they do a phenomenal job. And again, when I'm in schools and you're in there for whatever, it's a football game or a high school basketball game, those are random. They're not every, or whatever it may be. And I think the high school actually schedules a nighttime custodian. But the other schools that we're using, if it's gonna be consistent and year round, we should probably alter the positions rather than having them, and this is probably more, like you said, a conversation with the school department, but if you have a year-round positions where people are working till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, rather than having them come in all at 7, 8 in the morning or 6, 7 in the morning, maybe one should be scheduled at noon as the next piece of collective bargaining.
Yeah, I don't disagree, like I said, but we could certainly pursue that. I know last year we were in the, I call it the trial stages. We were doing our first run through of that community center, and then the pandemic hit. But I know it was pretty popular when it was running. So if that becomes a annual permanent operation, then I agree with you. I think we should try to do some negotiating to reduce the cost of the
I
overtime.
just think you'll get, and again, I think you'll just get more for your dollar at that point,
Like I said, I agree. I think we can, I think the superintendent will be on here a little later, so you
Okay,
can ask
well,
her.
I'll ask her as well, but, and then, other than that, Mr. Hinojosa, do you need anything else from us?
No, I mean, I've been working very closely with Rich for the whole year. We've put a budget together that I think is as lean as it could possibly be, yet, we certainly plan to do some activities this summer. We haven't packed it in yet. And, hopefully when September rolls around, we're rolling full force.
Thank you. And Council Powers, I appreciate your leeway with time. I did want to mention Council Morbido was in a car accident yesterday or 2 days ago, so he's not going to be on this week's calls. He apologizes, but he banged his head pretty good, so he's going to take the week off of getting on the computers, okay?
That's fine.
So we wish him well.
Mr. Hinojosa, I have a question I want to ask you. Actually, I have two questions. What are we doing with regard to gym rentals? I know it's been a while since I've been out of there, but if someone comes in, a citizen, and wants to rent a gym for basketball practice, what are we doing? What are the charges on something like that?
So if they're a youth, we have two different rates. If they're a youth organization, they pay $140. If they are an adult rental, they pay $190.
$190.
Yep.
Okay.
And that information is available on our website.
Okay. Now, I was approached by a fellow that on Harris Street that runs a soccer league.
Yep.
And he indicated to me that they were looking to get more time on the fields. Now, what is the situation with that?
Fields or in the gyms?
In the fields, soccer fields.
So right now, as of today, we will issue permits for the field for practices only. According to state guidelines, there are no competitive games allowed yet. So I will not issue a permit if you want to play a game, but I will issue a permit if you are looking to practice.
Okay.
Right now, if you do want to practice, we are accepting, I would want a practice plan from them and laid out what their practice looks like. And then I go line item by line item to make sure that they are following the state guidelines.
Okay. When you say plan, you're talking about a schedule?
Well, I'm talking about specifically soccer, a practice routine. So, as part of the state guidelines, they're only foot drills, and they have to maintain, especially kids, have to maintain a certain distance away from each other.
Yep.
So it's really for practice, and it's, from an adult standpoint, I don't think they quite understand, because they just want to come down and play against each other and be close, and we're just not at that stage yet. So, but if they presented a practice plan and I went down there and they were adhering to the practice plan, we would give them a permit.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other councilors have any questions?
I have a question, if you don't mind. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Visconti.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm well,
Hi,
Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I echo the same sentiments as Council President Keith. You do a great job over there, and you continue to really get the kids involved. And I want to thank you for your effort along with your team.
Thank
With
you.
that being said, it looks as you said that you're down about a little less than a person. About a part-time person, is that correct on your numbers of employees?
We're level funded from last year, so I'm not really down anybody yet.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, all right. One question, and I don't know if you said that at the beginning. The portions of your employee salaries are paid from other sources. Can you explain to me where that comes from?
Sure. So our sports and fitness coordinator,
Okay,
half of his salary is paid by the city. The other half is money that he should be generating
okay,
for his other half of his salary. So programs that he has created, that he has brought in, stuff that we weren't doing before. And that revenue is what pays the other half of his salary.
okay. And the activity program coordinator, is that still in effect, or is it that 19,000 is paid outside as well? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So that's somebody at the activity coordinator at the community center.
Okay,
Yeah, so the monies that we are generating at the community center are going to paying a salary, or at least
Great.
half the salary.
okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any other councilors wanting to speak? Tony, Jessica?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have my hand electronically held, but I guess, I don't know if you're seeing that or not.
I'm not seeing that.
Okay. That's okay. It took me a long time to learn how to do that, so,
You have to teach me.
Okay, Michael, I've been pretty public about my admiration for the job you do as the director down there. I couldn't be happier with you, and you've taken that place a long way. I won't go back to say where it was before you got there or whatever, but you have done an incredible job. I guess my only question now is, are we open at all, or what's going on? What are the kids doing?
So we're about ready to open. We're following state guidelines as to what they're allowing us to do. So we've opened up all the parks and playgrounds for now. As I noted earlier, I issued my first permit last night. Went reasonably well. I went down there just to make sure that, the practice plan that he submitted to me, that he was following, and he was to a T. So we're gonna slowly open up. We still have a lot of stuff going on, and I think people don't quite understand how serious this is, because if you go to some of our open spaces right now, that you see people just playing soccer games or baseball games, and they're pretty close together, but it's really tough to police at this moment in time. But we're doing everything that we can. My summer flyer, I was hoping was out yesterday, but we had a couple of vendors that are not going to work for us, so we're trying to backfill a couple of vendors. So my summer flyer should be out by Friday. Not as big as it normally is, because there were just some stuff that we couldn't do, but we're going to attempt to do as many things as we can, and follow state guidelines. And I mean, I think we're going to have a pretty decent summer considering.
That's great. I'm hoping the governor's going to loosen up a little bit this weekend. So let's hope, because I know if I was a kid, I'd be, you know, I'm a long way from being a kid, but it was, you know, this was the time that we were enjoying ourselves. And so I feel for the young people.
Yeah, well, not to bore you with this, but we've certainly, we're not really doing anything until July 13th. That's our target date. We figured that would really get us into the middle of phase 3, and, you know, with some loosened activities in phase 4, you know, we're planning our basketball league as scheduled with just some modifications. But once again, we won't start the league until phase 4. So that's late July 27th. I think we're hoping that date is. So again, just following all the guidelines, but we're planning, you know, unless something changes.
Great. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Powers, there's a resident that has a question.
Hi, good afternoon. Eric Lampedecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. Hi, Mike. I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Been working remotely and adjusting to COVID like everybody else. Just a couple questions for you. I was just curious if the softball league was budgeted in for this year, and if so, if you would see that being even plausible this year with everything going on.
Adult softball league is scheduled. An email went out last week. We're going to try to do it. Once again, there's everything that we do, we have some modifications. So last year we had 19 adult softball teams. We're very proud of that number. But due to lighted fields and some of the modifications that we need to make, we have to reduce it down to 14. At last check, we had 11 teams that wanted to play. So we've spaced out the games even further so that, you know, once the game is over, we can get people to the parking lot and out prior to the next game coming in. So that's why we had lessen the amount of teams that we could take.
Okay. And just one other item, it's probably not in the budget, but it's just something I wanted to put on your radar. Some other cities and towns around us are opening up their high school weight rooms to the community as a free service for residents. I know it's probably not feasible this year or next, but I just wanted to put that on your radar as maybe something Revere could explore down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure me and Dr. Kelly can have a conversation, you know, wrapped around the high school weight room.
Any other questions? Any councils with any other questions?
Can Councilor McKenna just check her volume for 1 second? We were working on something.
Certainly.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear
Oh,
you.
great. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Counselor?
No, I just had a problem with my mic, but I just fixed it, so I don't have any questions. I'm
Oh,
fine.
okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
No other councils with questions?
No other councilors, Councilor Powers.
Okay.
Oh,
let's-
Councilor Zambudo has his hand raised.
Counselor Zambudo. Counselor Zambudo.
He froze.
I can see he's not even moving.
Listen, my hand was still raised. I didn't lower it, so I apologize.
Oh, okay.
He only knows how to raise it.
That's it. I
Hasn't
know
learned
that.
how to put it down yet.
Listen, it takes time. It's hard to teach an old dog new
One,
tricks.
two.
His face is frozen. It's so upset with me.
Historical Society. We'll go on to there.
I just wanted to say one last thing. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
You too, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye, guys.
You know, actually, Council Powers, I wanted to state one more thing for the record, if I may.
Certainly, go right ahead.
During this I know we're going to be going into Health and Human Services and the Elder Services, but during this pandemic, one of the many departments that stepped up above and beyond their call was the Recreation Department. So really want to thank people from the Recreation Department. as well as the senior center, but in a number of departments, especially on this call today, really, really stepped up. So thank you, Mike, and thank you to your team.
Hello.
Thank you for your recognition. Thanks. Have a great day, guys.
I'm gonna have to call you back. I'm on a conference call right now. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, page 151, section 2. Richard, do you want to handle that?
Which one we on?
Page 151, section 2, historical and cultural resources, it's only $10,000.
Oh, yeah, sure. Basically, that budget was created last year because we're trying to take a more active role in our Revere
Yeah.
historic building down the road here. And basically, the $10,000 is what is estimated to be needed to pay for the utility bills in there. We did just get a grant and some appropriation from the council to renovate that entire building. And I know we're ramping up to try to make that a more focal point in the community. So the $10,000 is simply just for our utility costs of the building over there.
Thank you very much. And while you're here, we can go to page 152 and discuss the debt service.
Sure. Basically, the debt service is fixed costs that the community has for all the prior bonds that we have sold over the years. And from those amounts, we do have credits. We have rental car subsidy where we collect money from the rental cars that's allowed to be put towards the debt service of the police station. So we're using $250,000 of that. And we're also using bond premiums that were generated from debt service that we've issued in the past to lower our school building debt by $350,000. And the Amoresco energy service contract that was done back, I think, in 2012 came with the understanding that the schools would pick up the cost of the debt service because they realized all the savings of the improvements that were made over there. So that's a credit for $535,000 in principal and $197,294 in interest payments. So when you net those credits off of the debt service, you're left with $4.828 million.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, let's go to page 153, the unblessed. Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman, if I can just ask Rich one question on the health insurance percentage, okay? I think you estimated, I think, a 2.5% increase. Is that correct?
Wait, we're on debt service.
Okay.
We haven't gone to the unclassified yet. Right
But
now.
That's not part of the, are we on line item 700?
Yeah, the
We're
next
on
page, I think the next page is 900 there, so we can get into that.
153.
Happy to talk about it.
Huh?
So I'm happy to talk about the debt, the health insurance too. That was debt we were just on, but the next page is health insurance.
Okay. I can, if you want to just go into that. My only question is, you got an increase of what, 2.5% for the health insurance premiums? Is that?
Well, the 0% is what we're going up on most of our plans. Now, we do have one plan that we don't set the rates. It's not part of the self-insurance. And that's our MedX plan that's run through the Commonwealth. That did have an increase of 6%. So that kind of filtered into there, brings it to about that 2.5%. And plus the head counts change from year to year. Some people come on, some people come off, but we're level funded for our health insurance premiums for fiscal year 2020 for all active employees.
Okay, so that 2.5% is just a formula that you come up with, or is it a generic formula of an increase?
No, it's just based upon data that we get from our health insurance consultants that if we have 12 more people on a family plans, it'll go up. So the increase in percentage isn't necessarily because of the rate. It's just because of the bodies that are part of the health insurance times it by 80% times 12 months.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. The next item is, Medicare taxes. There's no change in that. Sick leave buyback.
Yeah, sick leave buyback is treated now in a special, in a trust account that was adopted by the council several years back. So we don't get an appropriation in the operating budget. We fund that as needed and we keep that money in a trust account until we need it the following year. So it accrues interest and the balance rolls forward.
Okay, and insurance premiums, we're down, $15,000?
Well, it's down 15 from request, but it's up from the prior year by $100,000. And that's simply because they're revaluing a lot of our bigger commercial properties, our buildings, our school buildings, et cetera. They, if it's not one thing, it's another sometimes with insurance. And now they've adjusted all of our valuations on our buildings. That's causing that to go up right now. We're still haggling with them over the final price, but that's a preliminary number that we're working off of right there. And hopefully we're able to beat them up a little on the final cost, but it's not easy dealing with the insurance companies.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Does that include the Legion building and?
Yeah, it includes every city building, including all the schools, all the vehicles in the city, the big equipment. It includes liability insurance for professional, for the police officers, et cetera. I think we're self-insured for some liability, but it's definitely most of the buildings and the property and the liability for accidents, et cetera.
Now, the trailers down at the city yard, is that picked up by the owner of the trailers or the city?
We lease those trailers, so I imagine the insurance is through the
With the city?
company that we lease them from. But I have to be honest, that's a guess. I'd have to follow up with Paul Agenzio on.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, because once the new city yard comes online, we'll be picking that up also. I would
Right.
imagine. And
Councilor Powers, I have a question.
certainly go right ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Viscay, on the insurance, I know that it's probably not going to affect 2021, but a lot of insurance companies were giving small refunds back because of, lack of use in April, May. I know I got one and I know a lot of people were. So were we able to receive any of those savings?
We're compiling a list of the vehicles that we feel can be credited towards not being used, i.e. school buses, et cetera. I mean, we were rolling with police and fire in some of our DPW, but the vehicles that weren't being used during the crisis, we're pursuing a refund on that right now.
Now, would that money be realized in 2021 then?
If they mail us a check, we either put it against the line item if it's in the same fiscal year, which would then basically roll into our undesignated fund balance in the general fund. So it's not as if we can go use it for something. It would just go to the bottom line and it would regenerate itself as free cash once it's certified for the following year.
Okay, good. I hope you can get that. That'd be worthy fight.
Working on it. We're trying.
Appreciate it.
Actually, I kept seeing a reoccurrence of credits in my checking account statements, and I found out it was from Allstate. They were refunding so much money each month during the pandemic. So that's a good thing.
I must be the only one that didn't get a refund then.
No, I didn't get it either.
Might be. Maybe you're with the wrong company.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all those points you have.
I didn't
on
get
your,
one
your
either.
driver record.
Listen,
I got commerce that they're criminals.
I haven't been in.
Wasn't a lot of money, so,
Those high-end vehicles, you don't get a
if I
credit.
owe you any money, don't get your
What
home.
high-end vehicles? All right. Wow. Well, that's going to be my next call as soon as I get off Zoom. Right, Rich?
Yeah. All right. Any other questions on the insurance? Happy to answer.
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, retirement pensions.
That's
$900,000, close to it.
yeah. The 2020 number was down 300,000 because we had when we incorporated the Metro North Emergency Call Center into existence, they had miscalculated the pension obligation because they're a separate entity. So that they loaded all of our employees that went to the rec on their assessment, and we had to adjust that in 2020. So for fiscal year 21, all of the apportionments of the pension obligation are straightened out. So you have the city, the school, you have the housing authority, and now you have the Metro North Regional. Those four make up the apportionment of the total liability. And what you see here, the 13.5 million, is the city and the school share of that apportionment.
Okay. Any questions, anyone?
No counselors or residents have their hand raised. Counselor Powers.
All right, and that's that. What do we have next? Actually, what do we have next on our
You were skipping around, so I wasn't sure what you wanted to take next on the agenda. Let's see.
Whatever's there.
How about we do Commission on Disabilities?
Okay, fine. Someone here? Richard?
doing?
Good.
Is Ralph there?
I'm right here.
There he
There's
is.
Ralph.
How's everybody doing?
Everything's good.
Good. Hi.
Page
Ralph, how are you?
135, 2. Okay. I wish all of the departments were like this. Ralph, who's the vice chair?
Rick Frenny.
Rick Frenny, okay.
Yes.
And you're the chair, okay?
Yes.
And then we have 5 other members,
Yes.
okay? Now, are they all voted? Is the chair and the vice chair also voting members?
Yes.
Or you got 7 voting members?
7 voting members.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any questions for the Commission on Disabilities? It's very lean. Expenses, 3,000. Payroll expenses, 63. Now, is there somebody that is not that was on the commission, that's not on the commission? Because I see a reduction there of $800.
Well, what it was is for years, they were carrying over 2 other positions for years on there. One time they had it for 9 positions, but through the state statute, you can have up to 9 members. But what a lot of commissions on disabilities were having problems with is having a quorum when you have 9 members. So I've been telling them for years that I didn't want to have 9 members. So we've never carried 9 members on the commission. So I told them to take those positions off of the roll. So we only have a commission of 7 members. So that's why it's showing a difference of payroll reduction.
Okay, very good. Any questions, anyone?
Council Powers, this is Patrick Keefe. How you doing?
Go ahead, Patrick.
I just wanted to comment. I know that this is such a small budget, so really appreciate since Mr. DeChico has taken over this department. And you see, it's a very low salary. I know he puts in a lot of time, and it's shown in the time he's had his commission. It's been 3-4 years now, 4+ years. He's done a tremendous job. Really, probably better than most cities around us. So thank you, Ralph, and your team for doing what you do. We really appreciate the time you put in. And again, I know you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart because you're not doing it for the money. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Good job.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
I'd like to concur with Council Chief. I think Ralph's doing a great job for the city. He's always there when I call him, and he answers my telephone calls, and he's willing to help anybody that's disabled. So thank you
Yeah.
very much, Ralph, for everything that you do for the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I too would like to echo the sentiments of the previous two speakers. When we were able to go to church, well, actually now we can go to church again, but one Sunday last fall, I happened to be walking into St. Mary's Church, and Mr. DeChico was sitting in his car on a laptop at probably about 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And when I asked what he was doing, he was actually doing work for the Commission on Disabilities. So that just shows his commitment to the commission. And like the previous speaker said, it has really been incredible to see this commission kind of grow in the work that they've been doing over the past few years. And I'm glad that it's back and that Mr. DeChico really takes it seriously and is doing some great work with it. And the other members of the
I feel
commission.
old when you call me Mr. DeChico.
Well, I can't call you what I normally call you on here, so.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just have a word.
Certainly, go right ahead.
Mr. DeChico has been one of those persons in the background during this pandemic, okay? And organizing, the people that are out there helping and trying to schedule enough people out there for the food pantries. Those of you that don't know, he's been out there behind the scenes trying to get everything organized, which is probably one of the most important things in scheduling and trying to make sure that we have enough people out there to help out our residents. And I just wanted to make that noted that he is that
Just one
person.
copy of that, Ken.
And
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure that he is
I emailed him back to see
commended
if,
for that. So
I emailed him back.
Thank you. Just for the people, just doing it for the people.
Councilor Powers, Councilors Janino, Sereno, and Zambuto all have their hands raised.
Take them in that order. Hello?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I was on mute. Ralph, you do a great job for the community, and I'm going to echo the same sentiments as my colleagues. They've said some wonderful things, and we all know what you do and the services you provide for those in need. So we really appreciate it. And I want to commend you for really stepping up to the plate during this difficult time. And not only are you helping those with disabilities, but you've stepped up to help the whole community. So thank you for what you do, and you put your heart and soul into everything, and keep doing it because that's what makes you so great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so I want to add my praise to Ralph. I won't call you Mr. DeChico because you're much my junior. But my colleague stole some of my thunder. I was going to congratulate you for all your work coordinating the volunteers and all the effort. But more importantly, the work you do on the commission, many times, you do your homework and you do your research, and many times when the council is about to do something that will hurt disabled people, you're there to warn us. And I, for one, appreciate it. you keep us informed on, things that we might not, there's no way we would, unless we were really studying, what the commission does, we would ever know these things that you bring to our attention. So keep up the great work, and we're lucky to have you in that position. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No one else? Ralph, thank you very much for your attendance here today. And this budget will be reported out Monday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is Kim Hanton here? Substance abuse.
He is.
Very good. Let's see, we're on page 123, section 2.
Council Powers, you may want to start with section 2-118, which is the public health.
Yeah.
That's public health. You skipped one department.
No, I did. I know I did. And we can go right to that. 118. You want to go to 118? We can go to 118. That's you, Kim?
Yes, Council Powers. I am helping support all of the other programs that are starting to be placed into the Health and Human Service department that we're developing. It came on the heels of a vision, a mission that the mayor had viewed back in the summer of last year to really kind of set forth a different type of view of the social determinants of health. So we began this last July in our journey to try to build a social aspect of the health department. So I will talk about the health department's budget because I believe I'm the representative of the health department, but I know that I have department heads here that will speak on each of their department's budget. But I forwarded each of you a vision that the mayor and I had put in place to take a look at because we started off with phases, and phase 1 was going to be really the evaluation of it that took place last summer into the fall. And then we were going into phase 2 prior to COVID taking place. So actually, a silver lining of all of this is actually COVID really reinforced phase 2, 3, and 4. So we're working in a direction to build a health and human service department. So I'm here for any questions. I've never really presented a budget to the council. So, I'm very familiar with budgets, but haven't done it in a municipality sense. So please, feel free to ask me anything, and I hope I can be of help.
Thank you very much. Councilors? Any councilor have any questions?
Council Powers, this is Patrick Keefe.
Mr. President, go ahead.
So I got your message, your email, Ms. Hanton, and I was impressed with your vision. But more importantly, I know that this is a new position for the city and for you with the city, but over the last 3 months, you've been tested really probably without the role officially. I've been witness to your leadership qualities. So I would imagine the people that you're going to be working with and overseeing the entire Department of Health and Human Services for the city. But the leadership qualities you've shown over the last 3 months have been impressive. It's really difficult sometimes when you have municipal employees because, there's a fine balance of, taking outside leadership and bringing it in. I think you've gotten in, you came in really under fire, and you established your leadership abilities immediately. I think that people respect you very much. I've heard nothing but great things about what you've done. I've seen it personally, so I applaud you for that, coming in so hot and being able to get people to work with you as a peer, but also at you as their leader. So I'm so excited for you to be taking over this role, and I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anybody have, any other councils have any questions on public health?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. Kim, I want to add to my colleagues' comments. You certainly stepped up during this pandemic, and you were on display for everybody to see, and your leadership qualities are certainly shown through. I wish you the best in your new position, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
thank you. Kim, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done during the last 4 months of the coronavirus. You really stepped up and helped the city, kept us safe. And I just want to commend you for everything. Good luck with your new position.
Any other councilors?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Certainly, go ahead.
Kim, I do want to say thank you to you and your team. I think for the past 3 months, there's no when a city is faced with a pandemic like this. So the most important thing that a response team, as well as the mayor, can do is open the line of communication to the residents. And I believe, truly believe that both the mayor as well as his response team, led by you, has done that. So I want to thank you for that first and foremost. I have a couple of quick questions, if I may. Just on the positioning of the employees and stuff like that. I know it's been shuffled around, correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm just trying to figure out the public health coordinator has been removed, which I believe it's about 75% of that payroll was paid through other sources. And it's like there's another position added, which about 10% of that salary is being paid outside of the sources. So there's a significant difference there. And maybe I can defer to Rich or whoever. Can somebody bring some clarity to that?
I'm happy to explain the gyrations, and I'll let Kim talk more on the detail of it. So the position that has been vacated was a regionally shared position. That was a gentleman named Jeff Stone, who was working here for the past couple of years on a collaborative between Winthrop and Chelsea and Revere. That will expire on the end of the fiscal year here, 6/30. So that position has been removed. You will see an increase in contracted services for $50,000, which is going to be, that will be what we were paying for through an employee will now be a contract service through the MAPC. So that's what the $50,000 is for. The new position you see there, Director of Outreach, that's Dimple, who has been consolidated into the Public Health Department now because we've collapsed the Healthy Communities budget into the Public Health Department, being that most of that department is run with grants and such. And you'll see some other departments that are run on grants, but they have some larger grants. But that Dimple and her shop is now combined into Fund 522.
Okay.
And what we were looking for, Councilor Visconti,
Sure,
in
yes.
regards to the decision that we made to consolidate and remove the employee position on Jeff Stone from the North Suffolk Regional Collaborative was based on the experience that we had both with Winthrop and Chelsea. It was a unified decision in all communities that we were moving towards a more advanced model of collaborating regionally, and we really could use the ability that MAPC has in analyzing things for us and helping support the decision-making that needs to take place. So that was the reason behind that. And, you know, as Rich said, that within this department, we're really looking for a lot of the different programming under this division to be able to stand on its own with grant positioning. So it's really kind of starting to look at that. And we knew that, you know, Dimple's position also is going to be, we're looking at Dimple in a different light right now. So we thought it was an opportunity for us to consolidate all of her programming under the health department.
Thank you, Kim.
Mhm.
Any other counselors? Any other counselors wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close that section of the budget. Ashley, is the school department here?
Yes, Dr. Kelly is present.
Okay. Dr. Kelly, could you come to the podium, please?
Hitting wrong buttons here. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Okay, I believe you're going to make a presentation with regard to your budget.
Sure.
Yes.
So I can start just by giving a bit of a summary of where we are in the budget process right now.
Okay.
As the council knows from their own budget process, we don't quite have any information from the state yet on what our Chapter 70 funding is going to look like. So we've worked closely with Matt Cruz, who's the CFO of the school department, and Rich Viscay, the mayor's office, and the school committee. I want to thank Michael Ferranti, who's the chair of the Ways and Means subcommittee for the school committee. All of those folks have worked very hard on basically making an educated guess at what our budget is going to look like for FY21. And some of the assumptions that we made were that the state will pull back the $8 million in Student Opportunity Act funding that they had promised us as recently as January. But we know that given the current state of the economy at the state level, it's unlikely that we'll see most of that funding. We were a little bit heartened yesterday when we received an email from the commissioner's office asking us to submit our Student Opportunity Act plans, which implies that we might actually see some of that money. But we won't know until probably late July or early August what we're going to get and how much we're going to get. So we felt the fiscally prudent thing to do so that we could continue our funding for the school department after July 1 was to pass a working budget that's based on the best information that the mayor had from the groups that he works with, that I had from the groups that I work with, and that Matt Cruz had from the groups he works with, and kind of put that all together to make a best guess estimate. And when we did that, we worked with Rich and his department on our Schedule 19 pieces, and are proposing before you tonight a $94,113,447 budget. There are a lot of variables here. One thing that we've not included in this current budget is expenditures for the responses we're going to have in the school department related to COVID-19, including PPE purchases, anticipated increases in transportation costs, and technology purchases. We do have a $2.2 million CARES Act grant that we're using separately for those purposes. And we are working with the state. We submitted today an anticipated number of PPE requirements based on state guidelines that will be procured in a larger order from the Department of Education to school districts through the Combis program. That totaled about $300,000 and should give us enough masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, gowns for nurses' offices, and other items like that to get us through a 12-week closure. So that's separate from this budget that you're looking at. It's not accounted for here because it's a separate grant. This budget basically takes the level of services that we had last year and carries them over with increases for contractual salary increases and some anticipated typical increases for fixed cost services like electricity, fuel, and other things like that. But it introduces no new teaching positions or other positions. It does represent a decrease in a number of positions that folks have retired out of that we're not replacing at this time, so that we can at least capture some salary savings over the summer. There will likely come a point in the fall or the winter that we'll have to replace some of those positions. And I guess I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
So basically, Diane, what we're looking to do is to find out exactly what we're going to get from the Commonwealth. Now, our net minimum contribution is $37 million approximately.
Mhm.
And that's a must. We can't do anything beyond that.
Well, you could certainly do something beyond that. And
Well, I know what I was referring to. And I don't think anyone on this council would even think of cutting an educational budget. But I mean, that's what we're required to give you by the Commonwealth. And I'm sure we could give you more. I'd love to say, here's another, $10 million. Let's put more kids in the school system. And hopefully we're going to build a new high school too. That's something that's going to be coming up. And as you know, we all supported that up here.
That's right.
And we'll continue to, because I think that's long overdue. I think the problem now is, finding a place to put it. Finding a place to put it.
That's
And,
right. Definitely one of many dilemmas we're struggling with right now.
And in spite of this, in spite of all of this and the virus, you're doing a great job, and your staff is doing a great job over there, and always very responsive to the children and the parents of this community.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for that. Any councilors have any questions regarding this?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman McKenna.
thank you very much. Hi, Diane. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Joanne. How are you?
Good, thank you. I asked Rich the other day about this and he didn't know, so I'm going to ask you. Are you giving any early incentive retirement packages to anybody, any teachers, so you can get rid of some of those high salaries?
We did not. We did offer an early retirement incentive package to our AFSCME employees, so custodians, secretaries, bus drivers. We did not extend that to teachers because they are members of the Mass Teachers Retirement System. And in order to benefit fully from that program, there are mandatory prerequisites for years of service and age that we can't manipulate in any way. It wouldn't make sense for teachers to take that kind of an incentive. But we did extend that to our AFSCME employees. And I believe we had 3 who took advantage of that offer. It mirrored the offer that the city made to their employees.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other councilors? Do you have any questions?
Councilor
Keith?
Councilor Keith.
So, hi, thank you, Councilor Powers, and thank you, Dr. Kelly. I know that a lot of the questions that I have are very hypothetical because there's so much unknown. So I'm not here to, really criticize. I think you've done a really nice job, and of course, I'm very proud of our school system. So thank you. But my curiosity is, and I pray, I really do, that we have normal school year next year, beginning in the fall. Is if there is a hiccup or if there is a delay, are we going to, defer this expenses, whether it's transportation related, And I mean, I know it's nice that we paid a lot of people through the year, like regularly. And I'm was totally okay with that through this current school year because it was so quick, it was so unforeseen. But where we're going into September, if we're not going to be open, are we going to be paying out, all the stipends that we pay out? Are we going to keep everyone employed? I mean, it's not realistic. It's not the real world. So my curiosity is, would we, go about that in September? And again, I pray that we are not affected at all. But one, number two is things like school maintenance, things like landscaping. I mean, I thought it was very peculiar that we had schools that were completely closed, and I want to upkeep them, but we didn't alter any of the landscaping agreements and things like that during a time when we weren't really using the schools. I mean, things like that. Food service, did we save or were we able to put aside money from this year towards next year? Again, general upkeep, whether it's janitorial contracts that we were using this year. We had cleaners in there. Of course, the schools that were being used for outreach and things like that, you want to have clean, but schools that were being kept idle, we don't need the manpower in them to keep them clean if they're not being used. My curiosity is there going to be a plan in play if you do have an altered school year so that you can put money towards technology and you can put money towards outreach in school, whether it's buying iPads and getting more online.
Mhm.
What's your plan what's plan B basically?
There's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
So let me try to make a couple of points. And the first thing I'm going to do is take the opportunity to promote the community events, the community town hall that we are hosting next Tuesday night, the 23rd at 5 o'clock. And as parents, you would have received information on that in my most recent COVID update. I'm hoping to get some input and feedback from parents, teachers, administrators, and community members on what their thoughts are for next year. We're hoping that just prior to that meeting, we will have received the commissioner's guidance on state requirements for schools to reopen. And I anticipate that what he's going to release is 3 separate sets of guidelines that talk about returning to school fully in person, returning to school using a hybrid model, or not returning to school. And in conversations that we've had with him before, that is going to be predicated on the instance of COVID that a particular school district is experiencing at the time that we're talking about coming back to school. And, as Kim and some of our other health professionals can tell you, the instance of COVID is very different across the state. And there are actually school districts that have had 0 or close to 0 incidences of COVID. So how they reopen and what it looks like for them will be very different than it might look in a place like Chelsea or Revere or Everett or Malden, where there have been much higher instances of COVID. And naturally, whatever plan we undertake will follow the guidelines of the CDC and our local health officials and others before we would make any decision. So we're going to talk more about that initially at the town hall meeting on June 23rd, and we will be continuing those conversations throughout the summer as more guidance is given to us on what we can and should do in terms of returning to school next year. So I'll start with that. My best guess is that we will probably come back in some kind of a hybrid model where students will spend some time in person in much smaller groups than what we're used to in a classroom with their teacher. And they will spend other time not in a classroom, at home learning, hopefully expanding the new learning that they received when they were in the classroom with the teacher. And our model would look like something along those lines. So with that in mind, and with the idea that kids are already suffering a lot socially and emotionally from this closure, for a lot of kids, school is their entire life. I would not be in favor of saying at this point, we should eliminate all clubs, activities, and sports because they're not going to look the way we're used to them looking. I'm hoping instead we say we need to keep all of those teachers with those stipends and maybe alter business as usual so that we can still service kids outside of the traditional school day and give them opportunities to expand their interests and become better in areas outside of math and science and English and history, which probably do not top students' lists of things they want to learn more about. I think they might be eclipsed by art and music and football or baseball or whatever the case may be. With the cleaning services and the upkeep of the school, we did keep those services going on through the spring. We didn't have any building that was never open. We have even now in the last 3 weeks been having parents and students come back to retrieve personal items and teachers come in to clean out classrooms and do things like that. There was definitely a cost associated with those contracts we had signed for landscaping and cleaning services and things like that. But I feel more confident inviting parents and students and teachers back to their school, knowing that the schools have been upkept both inside and outside. And with the food services, I'll tell you that we're actually running at a tremendous deficit for the for our FY20 food services program. We're about $400,000 in the red, and that's because we continue to deliver free meals to the community every day to all students. That was not offset by the intake that we typically have from paid lunch students. So that was an unusual expenditure for the school department. Fortunately, we keep fiscally sound practices that have a revolving account that allows us to accommodate for unexpected occurrences like this. So we had the money in our revolving account to pay for those additional expenditures. And, you know, I think that they were good to help the community. We are looking at, one of the things that we did apply for is the community eligibility provision through the Department of Agriculture at the national level. And we should be hearing back from them soon on our application. We should qualify at this point, which would give us a different form of reimbursement so that every child in the Revere Public Schools, regardless of their family income, can receive free breakfast and free lunch. And our reimbursement structure would be different through the community eligibility provision so that we wouldn't run that kind of deficit going forward. So we're working on that as well. I don't know if I answered all of your questions.
Oh, it was a good explanation, and I appreciate it. And I know this is it's obviously we're kind of where everyone's guessing. So I appreciate you. But it just sounds like you're prepared. So thank you. I know that no one knows what's going to happen in a few months. I just wanted to feel assured that there was a plan in place for basically anything that's going to happen.
It is, and honestly, like the plans that we're making right now for coming back to school, what we're doing is working on some of the structural issues we have. Like, for example, one that we talked to the union about today is middle school schedules are on a 6-day rotating schedule. That doesn't work if you have kids coming in one week and staying home the next week. So we're trying to iron out those issues so that we can be as flexible as possible, because it could be that we come back in September in a hybrid model, and on October 1st, they say, you're good to go, everybody back to school. And then in January, they say, shut it down, everybody stay home. And we're trying to position ourselves so that we can transition through those different kinds of phases fairly smoothly, and that teachers and students and parents are in a position to make those transitions on a dime.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Council, you're on mute, Powers.
It appears he's frozen as well.
If I may, Hi, Diane, how are you?
Good, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. You still got all your hair, I see. Must be going crazy over there. So I
We have an
commend you.
awesome team, thankfully, and everybody steps up and works hard, so it makes it a little bit easier.
It really does. When is I know it's unknown, but when do you think, and I'm not going to hold you to it because I'm getting a lot of people asking me, is there any projected date that you think you will know
Those bags
which
are
way you
super
guys-
heavy. Do you want me to?
which way you will go in terms of going the
I could
hybrid
leave some
route?
stuff for tomorrow if you want. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Do you have any idea? I mean, is it going to be last minute and is it going to be something that we can prepare our parents for a little bit in advance?
Yeah. So we're hoping to really get rolling on mapping out a plan as soon as the commissioner's guidance comes out.
Okay.
And we want to augment that with what we hear from families and teachers on the 23rd of June. And then our next phase of information gathering we're going to do, and we're waiting until the week after July 4th to do this because we're hoping that by then families, parents, and all of us in general will have a better understanding of what the state is expecting and what the state is guiding us to do. So the week after July 4th, we're going to send a survey to staff and a survey to parents asking them, what do you anticipate you're going to do? Do you have a sick child at home that you're not going to send back to school, that we need to figure out how to educate them in a completely remote environment? Or are you wishing that we're going to have kids in school every single day? And, there are some kids, like we're talking about our English learners and our special needs students, that even if we do a hybrid model, is there a way that we can bring them in every day to help close some learning gaps that may have exacerbated themselves over the last 3 months? So, but the typical student we anticipate would start off the year on that kind of hybrid model where they might be in for a week learning something and then home for a week applying that learning. We also have to think of the fact that we have teachers who are going to be at high risk for a variety of different reasons. And how are we going to engage them if they're not physically capable of coming into school and working with students? So around the second week in July, I'm trying to find a calendar. I don't have one in front of me right now, but the week after July 4th, we want to get those surveys out. And Dr. Garcia has been working on developing those surveys already to see where families stand and where teachers stand. And from there, we'll be able to build our capacity in terms of having, as I said before, are we going to have mostly hybrid with some kids every day and some kids at home every day? And from there, we would be able to finalize that plan and have it out by the end of July. That's our goal.
Well, great, thank you. We're all waiting for that response. And meanwhile, tell everybody over there in the school department I said hello.
Will do. Did you get your jacket?
No.
Oh, okay, it's coming.
I didn't get mine either.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one more question, please.
Go ahead, please.
Has there been any discussions with you and the mayor about opening McKinley School for overload or, to distance kids?
It was mentioned, and I don't know if you've been in that building recently, but the water department and the sign department are in that building now, and it had been repurposed a little bit for some police training. They were training police dogs in there, and it would take a lot to get that building back into any kind of shape that we would want to bring children into it. And at the time that we vacated that building to move to the Hill School, we were already questioning the whether or not we should be having kids there. So, one of the things that they're talking about on the national level is having secondary students learn from home because they're old enough to be home alone, and repurposing middle schools and high schools as elementary schools so that you can have more classrooms with the kids socially distanced and have them in on a more regular basis, which is a great idea. In our context, it would be a challenge because we don't have the funding right now to double our teaching force, which is what that would require. But we're certainly paying attention to what is happening across the country, and even in other countries. We're watching places like South Korea where they opened schools and then quickly had to reclose because they had an uptick in COVID cases. We're paying attention to everything that's happening and, you know, trying to plan with all of that in mind.
Thank you.
Any other questions by anyone? Diane, thank you so much for your attendance here today. And I know it's a very difficult thing to predict what the virus will do. It can have a tremendous impact on our scheduling, not only, but also our monetary resources coming into the cities and towns. I know, however, that in your position, your staff, whatever comes down the road, you will do your best and rise to the occasion. And I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens of the city and the children who attend your schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's who else is here?
Council on
Alan?
Elder Affairs?
Yes. Councilor on Elder Affairs. Debbie? Is Debbie here?
I am here, Counselor Powers.
How are you today?
I am well, thank you, Counselor.
All right. Okay, we're going to go to section 2, page 127. Again, this is a very lean budget. If you go to page, actually 129 is the salary schedule. There's nothing extraordinary in here. These are certainly positions that are needed in that department. And there are only 4 positions that I can see. And I know that since Debbie's been down there, she's been doing a fantastic job by all accounts of the people that do attend those programs. Debbie, do you have anything you'd like to mention before the council?
I don't, only to mention that we will have drivers as well. And I believe Rich and the mayor, they will be paid out of a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have several revolving funds with regard to the senior center. One of them is the transportation revolving fund. And we also have formula grant dollars that we can help offset any operations. Tough to budget this, again, figuring that the seniors might be the last people that are actually able to go out and about here. So we try to keep the general operating budget from staffing perspective as lean as possible. And then as things ramp up, we will bring back drivers and pay them using off ledger accounts. So as you said, it's a pretty lean budget. We're down significantly from last year's appropriation. And you know, this particular budget being it's the senior center, it's the question is, when are we going to be able to open up and start functioning as normal? So we didn't want to tie up too many dollars in the general fund on these costs that we didn't know when they would start to arrive. So we'll use off-ledger accounts for those.
When in fact that does happen, will we have monies available to disinfect that building?
Oh, yeah, we have plenty of money. And one thing we have plenty of money to do is anything COVID related, because we have the funds that came in from the federal government.
Yeah.
Again, the issue with those is they don't allow us to supplement revenue. We can't plug holes where we lost revenue, but we can certainly pay for anything COVID related, whether it's spit shields or cleaning or retrofitting space. And it's actually very broad. So we can certainly get creative with the way we spend those dollars, as long as we can pull it back to a COVID related expense. So we're definitely covered on any of those charges, whatever we need for the seniors to make them comfortable and operable in that building.
Well, I have just one more question myself. When in fact we do go back to, our regular schedule, will there be monies available to provide for the meals that we do down there for the refreshments for the seniors? And I know that many of them come down there and they look forward to that, and rightfully so.
The short answer is yes. We have an agreement with Mystic Valley Elder Services for our meals program. We also operate a revolving fund for activities and meals programs, both of which have a good chunk of money in there. So I know that Deb has some ideas on what she wants to do going forward with that operation. But the short answer is yes, we will have funding to do everything that the seniors have been accustomed to doing, and hopefully even more than that.
Hopefully everything and more.
Exactly.
Debbie, do you have any observations or questions you'd like to present to the city council?
So, just observations. You all know that I was here just a short time, but I've tried very hard to follow, your lead, because I know you all love the seniors and take very good care of them. So we've painting, and we've been putting in a new dishwasher and new doors, and I invite you all to come down and see how beautiful we're trying to make it for our seniors, so that when we do open, they'll be very pleased to see the building updated, cleaned, bathrooms, everything really nice for them. They deserve it probably more than anybody.
I've heard on the street you've made a lot of improvements down there. And first one I heard about was the dishwasher. And, I, as only one of the counselors, and I'm sure the others feel the same way, although I can't speak for them. I think that anything that is required in that building by the seniors will be here 100%. And I want to thank you and congratulate you on your new position. I know you've only been there for a while, but I'm sure you'll do an excellent job. You have the wherewithal and the compassion for the seniors, and I want to thank you publicly. Thank you.
Thank you,
Are
Counselor.
there any counselors that have any questions for Debbie?
Councilor Powers.
Yes,
Councilor Powers.
go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Joanne, do
What?
you want to go first?
Thank you.
You want to raise your hand next time?
I did. My hand's raised.
After me. Ladies first.
I just want to say, Debbie, thank you. I was in there a couple of months when you were, the so-called director, and now you got the position, and congratulations. I'm sure it was a trying time for you to get to know some of these seniors as well as I have, and to lose them. I was very saddened by that, and I'm sure that was hard for you. And I just want to say that, I got to know some of these seniors on a personal level, and they talked about their families, and I felt like family with them. So I'm sure it was difficult for you, because it was difficult for me too. So, but congratulations.
Thank you, Counselor McKenna. And they are like family to
I know.
all of us.
Any other councilors wishing to speak?
Thank you.
Councilor Visconti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deb, I want to say thank you, and you know I'm a big fan of yours, obviously, and I want to commend you on a great job that you're doing. The senior center is near and dear to me, and it's right next door. I stop in quite a bit. I've gotten to know the seniors quite a bit over these last 4 years, and I know it's while it's disappointing to see Steve leave, it's great to see that you have stepped in, and I've heard nothing but great remarks from all those seniors. You know, you were thrown in there, and you know, you really stepped up, and it means a lot. I know the seniors are really happy. So with them being happy, it makes all of us happy, you know, and because they deserve it. And I want to commend you on a great job. With that being said, there was just one thing that is on the budget. I'd be remiss if I didn't say something about the line items, right? There is a line item on the budget, Rich, for $45,000 that was an increase rather than, I think it's an increase of 30,000. Can you just explain what that was?
Yeah, that was us moving the, for historically, before my time, the $45,000 for Mystic Valley Elder Services was budgeted in the mayor's budget. And it really kind of seemed like an odd spot for it. So in trying to align up budgets better in tune to the actual person who's overseeing it, we moved that money from the mayor's budget to the Elder Services budget.
Great, that's it. Thank you. Deb, thank you. Great job.
Thank you, Councilor Visconti. And you are over here a lot, and I appreciate you caring.
Anything I can do for them.
Thank you.
Are there any other councilors with questions?
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. Thank you. Debbie, I want to thank you for stepping up to the plate. The seniors took to you like nothing I've ever seen. So they love you and we love you, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. Thank you.
Any other councilors?
Councilor Powers.
Oh, Councilor Keefe and Councilor Sereno have their hands raised.
Go right ahead. See, I can't see your hands on all of you because of my.
Quite all right. Thank you. You know, I just had a couple questions. Everything that everyone has mentioned, Deb, you've done a wonderful job. Got to work firsthand with you for the last few months. You care more about the seniors than anyone, so we appreciate that. Thank you. You have a very lean budget, as we noticed, and I think it's a good idea to shift towards more of the Mystic Valley Elder Services. What about some of the maintenance? I know that like the front steps, there's still some work to be done. Is there enough money in the maintenance proposal to do that, or is there going to be money in a revolving fund to fix more of the building that's needed?
Okay. I'm going to defer to Rich Fiscal on that one.
Rich, are we going to get all this stuff fixed?
We have been chipping away at it, Council, and anything that needs to be addressed at the senior center, we have the funding for.
Okay, sounds good. If Deb's happy, I'm happy.
Patrick.
Because the seniors are happy.
Mr. President, I will say that you were here from the beginning with me, and I was honored to work with you with the food, Councilor Sereno. You know, I have to say, you guys were here helping right from the beginning with the food, and the seniors of the city should be proud of this council, because you guys, you know, the mayor and this council really care about the seniors, and I am humbled and honored to be working with all of you to work for the seniors. And it's a great team, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to?
Chairman. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I just wanted to praise Deb and say, Deb, you're doing a tremendous job. I know when the seniors are finally able to get back in the senior center, there's a fresh coat of paint in there. You know, you guys over the past fiscal year in the senior center, there's been a lot of maintenance, a lot of updates, a lot of upgrades. And Deb, you're doing a terrific job. And, you know, when COVID-19 hit, a lot of people, you know, people like Ralph, people like Debbie, they shifted everything from their normal work to make sure the people of our city were taken care of. And Deb has, you know, had been leading the food efforts, and we turned that senior center into a food bank. And it was incredible to see. And she's, you know, you're doing a great job, Deb. So thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, if, with that said, I want to call up.
Chairman, Jessica has her hands up.
Oh, yeah, actually, I can't see the hands here, so someone's gonna have
That's all
to.
right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deb, I just want to say you do a great job. My colleague said enough, but you know, I love that you're putting as much time in as you can with the downtime that there is right now, and working on everything else that you do for our community. So thank you, and keep doing what you do.
Thanks, Councilor Janino. Thank you.
Chairman Powers, I have just one question that I forgot to ask, if you don't mind. Deb, is there a plan in place to start the transportation for our seniors? You know, I know in terms of the buses that are there, is there a plan in place to help them transport them to various places? I think that was done in the past. So is that going to happen anytime soon?
So I will defer this question to Kim Hanton. We have discussed this, but I'm going to let Kim take this one.
And the only reason I'm asking, Kim, is because I have a number of seniors that have called me looking to know if that is going to be offered again and when it's going to be offered. So I know a lot of seniors have that in mind and are wondering what the situation is with that.
And we're working really hard to make sure that, you know, that gets up and in place, but we have to do it methodically and safely. So as soon as we can really come up with a plan that can keep the drivers safe as well as the participants safe, we certainly will begin to roll it out. We're probably looking at more of a phase 3 rollout of that, where the social distancing will be less rigid and restrictive. Because at this point, in order for us to do that, in order for us to keep the driver and the consumer 6 feet apart, both in coming in and you know, leaving, and then the cleanup that's going to be required, we've started a process. We've looked at all of the vans, and at this point, the way that things are, the regulations that are in place, we can't accommodate. You know, we can't stay within the regulations and do the transportation. So we're hoping that at phase 3 that we'll be able to provide some of the transportation. So, and we're also, just so people know, that we're also looking at right now, and this is just another piece that folks on this call I'd like to have an understanding of, that we've rolled out, you know, testing for our senior housing on a different level. We've added mobile testing in. So we're really watching that very, very closely, because if we see any kind of influx in, you know, in the confirmed positive for this population, we really want to be able to kind of put in place an advisory, a directive. This is something that we were really on top of in the first phase of COVID entering, not our reopening of COVID. I do believe that because of the advisory and the directive that we've put in place with seniors, we did really well in this city because of that. So I want, and I know that I'm conservative in some of the approaches that I'm taking, but I do believe that we really saved lives in this approach. So though I do understand the challenge and people want to get out there, I really, main objective right now is to keep people safe.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Debbie, Thank you for your attendance here today. Veteran Services. Anyone here from Veteran Services?
Mark is here, but he has his mic and camera shut off right now.
He has his mic and camera shut off.
Here he is.
Oh,
Here
He's back.
I am. Can you hear me? No?
Yes, Mark,
Yeah,
we
we
can
can
hear
hear you,
you.
Mark.
Okay. Well, good evening, council. I appreciate your time.
good evening to you, sir, and thank you for your attendance. Another very lean budget.
Um,
Mark, it sounds like you're having a little technical difficulty there.
Mark,
first of all,
try your
to
phone
say,
if you're-
looking at this screen, yes. But I'd first like to say, thank. Can you hear me better now?
Not that good, Mark.
You're breaking up. Try your phone.
Well, while he's trying to fix his phone, I just wanted to let the council know that the mission statement, goals and objectives of the veterans was updated, and I'll send a revised version of that if it doesn't reconcile with some of the data. So that's on me. I put in an older version that I need to replace. So that will be coming forward soon.
Council Powers, while we're waiting on Mark, Director Silvestri, if I could just maybe Mr. Viscay can answer. It looks like there's a difference of about $100,000 less in funding for 2021. And, it looks like the majority of that is in veterans benefits. So I know Mark could probably answer more eloquently, but why is there an expected drop in benefit? Is that?
Yeah, this was a tough one. We certainly don't like the optics or the idea that we'd be cutting veteran services, and that's certainly not the case. We're just looking at historical figures over the last several years. We have had some turn back in the appropriation for the veteran services. So after speaking with Mark and discussing it, we lowered that figure to try to save some jobs, et cetera, and we put forward that number with the understanding that, of course, if there's a supplemental appropriation needed, we will certainly come forward. But the last several years of expenditures are well below the estimated. We spent $636,000 in fiscal year 19 and $726,000 in fiscal year 18. We're on pace to spend around $600,000 this year. So,
Okay.
So we felt comfortable with it. Again, I think it's I don't love it. I think it's a bad look, but again, we were looking long and hard everywhere to realize some savings, and I'll let Mark speak further to it when he gets back on, but I feel that he's comfortable with that number, with the understanding that we'd always come back if we need anything for the veterans.
Yeah,
We
and
also
that's all I wanted to make sure. It looks like it's probably a realistic expense. I just wanted to make sure we weren't pulling back on funding to that.
Yeah.
I think all of the councils are very sensitive to funding the people service of our community. When it comes to, we talked about the senior center, the veteran services, recreational services for youth. We're all very sensitive to making sure that we take care of those areas. So
yeah, and in fact, we get 75% of those dollars back on a rolling basis through the cherry sheet. So even those dollars, we'll get that money back, at least 75% of it. So again, it was just more of a number that seemed like it would cover the year in and year out expenses over the last several years. And of course, if something goes awry and we need more services for these veterans, we'll be right before you with an appropriation as such.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Mark back or no?
Rich, question.
Sure.
Is there any maximum on the amount of benefits that can be paid out, that we are reimbursed to the 75% mark?
I don't think there's a maximum. I think there are guidelines that say which benefits are reimbursable and which ones aren't. In fact, some are 100% reimbursable, and some benefits we give aren't reimbursable at all. And
Hello.
I would really defer to Mark on the programming of those dollars. But mostly everything we spend through that service is reimbursed 75% from the Commonwealth.
With the exception of the salaries.
I think I just heard Mark back on there.
Yep, he's on.
John, you on, Mark?
I am. Am I clearer?
Much
Yes,
clearer.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Much-
You just gotta put your phone down so we can see your face.
Okay.
Mark, the Council of Powers just asked about the reimbursements through the Commonwealth for the veteran services, and I thought you'd be best to answer that.
Okay, so Council Powers, as you see, and there was a little mishap, so we don't have the right numbers in front of each other with, so for instance, we gave out $554,000 in Chapter 115 benefits in this year, 2020. We will be reimbursed 75% of anything that went out from medical and monetary value or fuel. On top of that, we will be reimbursed 100% on anything that was medically related, because we have clients, 120 of them, 81 receive checks, and the remainder are what we call medical only.
Yep.
The medical only gets paid 100%, and we cover their medical costs if they're over income on that.
So if some veteran goes to a hospital or a clinic, and we support that, we get reimbursed 100%? Am I hearing that right?
Well, no, they have to be on our Chapter 115 rolls. And it does have some standards to it of income and money in the bank, and there's a process to it, but all our information's online. There's a benefit calculator that's on my webpage, and any veteran can go on there, punch their numbers in, and see if they qualify, and if they do, they contact us, and we'll get them in immediately.
Okay, very good. Any councils have any more questions? Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mark, I just want to thank you for the job you do. You really took this job and made me proud from day one, and you get better all the time. So, I mean, we have a great veteran service here, and I'm happy you're on board. So keep up the good work.
Counselor, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it couldn't be done alone. My assistant director, Donna Dreesen, is amazing. And like I was about to say before I got cut off here, I'm looking at a screen full of people that over the last few months did some extraordinary things to move this city forward in a pandemic. And I'm proud to be on tonight with this team as far as Health and Human Services, because I tell you, excuse my French, we did some kick-ass shit.
That's French.
We.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure, go ahead.
if I may, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Director Silvestri, I just want to say thank you and commend you. You've been doing tremendous work. Just a quick side story about Mark. A few weeks ago, a gentleman up the street from me, a neighbor of mine, it was his birthday. He's a Korean War veteran. And I found out it was his birthday at 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And I know we've been doing lots of parades for various people for birthdays and stuff. I texted Mark. His daughter hadn't really planned anything. I texted Mark, and within a few hours, Mark put together a birthday parade for this veteran for his, I believe it was his 86th birthday. And he got guys from the American Legion Post, the Mottola Post, rather. So Mark is always going out of his way to make sure our veterans not only have what they need, but that their quality of life is the best that it can be. So Director Silvestri, I just had a quick question, because obviously as chair of the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee, I was really particularly interested in your budget and the narrative and whatnot. Can you just give us a snapshot of, you know, what your day-to-day consists of and how you and your team, Donna, how you've transformed veteran services over the past few years? It seems like we're serving more veterans, we're getting more benefits, Chapter 110 benefits and whatnot. So can you dive into that a little bit for us?
I can. First, I'd like to thank you, Counselor, for those kind words. And yes, so before I go any further, it's Chapter 115, but I won't hold
Sorry,
that against you,
115.
Counselor.
Sorry about that.
So yes, there are different benefits, and we are taking care of our veterans more than ever, and I'm proud to say that that's an effort on the city as well as I'm going across the board from the mayor on down through the council with the motions you've all put in. But speaking just directly on our benefits, so right now we have a little spike in our Chapter 115 benefits, and that is due to COVID-19 and people that weren't allowed the PPU or unemployment for some reason or another. I'd like to touch on the $100,000 that was removed from the veterans budget. And I have to say, a lot of people I'm sure are looking at it as a negative. And I have to say, due to the work we've accomplished as a veteran service office in getting our veterans in the city onto federal benefits has lowered our cost going out from city benefits. So in August of 2020, we actually hit $1.3 million. It brings us, that comes into our city a month to veterans. So I'm actually pretty proud. I think I can say I bring in the most revenue as an employer in the city of Revere. But other than that, so getting that number as high as we have, we've been able to drop the need in the city for our city and state benefits. So my prediction of this year's numbers, as you can see, is around $600,000. I believe even with a spike, we won't reach 650. So it made sense to take $100,000 in the state of the city from the budget that we always actually overload anyway, because we get the 75% back. Was doable and wasn't affecting our veterans in any way, shape, or form. As far as our day-to-day, Counselor, it changes. It's going to change even more now with COVID. We got to come up with a schedule that fits both my office and the ISD side. And with that, it's going to be challenging. But so far, I haven't seen a challenge that we've all haven't been able to work out together. So I'm pretty excited for that. We serve 350 households. We're now up to 375 on our food bank. We, like I said, bring in $1.3 million a month for veterans benefits and widow benefits. We're doing some great things. 123 Shirley Ave was established. We get, with the help of Kim, we got them tested for COVID-19, which was amazing. We're doing some great work at the Veteran Service Office, and it's a citywide task.
That's great. Thank you, Director Silvestri. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give kudos to Donna Driesen. I know she's your right hand, left hand. She is your go-to person, and she does a tremendous job too. So I just want to give kudos to Donna too.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
All right, Jess.
Thank you, Greg. First of all, Mark, I want to start by thanking you for all that you do. You have a very lean budget, and I'm glad to hear that that cut's not going to affect you, and that, in fact, it is a positive reflection of the work that you've been doing. So thank you for that. I do have a question for you, though. I know that with everything that's happening with COVID, your role has changed a little bit. You're still servicing our veterans, but you're also doing so much more for the community as a whole. So can you talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you've coordinated with the SUDI office during the pandemic and COVID, and maybe give us a little insight on that?
I can, absolutely, and I'm sure I can let Julia add into that as well. And I think that's a piece that shows the mayor's goal overall of bringing our offices closer together and working hand to hand. And I've actually seen a huge positive come out of us working hand to hand. And yes, it takes us stepping outside our role as veteran service officers or SUDI agents, but these are the most vulnerable populations that we're having in our city, and it's an honor to work as a team and to go outside the box a little bit to help them. And I appreciate you noticing that, Counselor.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman? You're on mute.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Oh, okay. Mark, I too want to say, I want to commend you on a job that both you and Donna have been doing since you started that position. But even more so, the work that you guys have been doing over there during this pandemic. I know you're working 7 days a week, and you're not doing it for the pay, okay? You're doing it for the love of the veterans. It clearly shows that, you know, from all the work that you and Donna do, and I want to say thank you for that. The veterans are truly lucky to have both of you, okay, helping them out. And I want to go on record by saying that there's a small department there. It's only 2 people. You know, the amount of money that you're bringing in, I'm sure other departments, probably like Lynn, have more than 2 people working, if I'm to assume that. I don't know if that's correct or not. But I got to believe that there are some departments that have more people in the Veteran Affairs office, and you guys are doing a great job. So I just want to commend the work that you guys continue to do on a weekly basis, or daily basis, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Counselor. And I got to say, we have a saying in the veteran service officer world, you don't accept this job if you expect to work 40 hours a week, and you don't accept this job if you expect to become rich. I've become rich in the ability of helping the veterans and their family members of this city, and I couldn't be prouder to do so. It's the second greatest honor to serving my country, and I truly mean that.
Great job. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Mark?
Councilor McKenna has her hand raised.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mark. I always say something when you're on in front of the council, but I just want to say thank you. You've taken a department which really functioned little, and you made it into an enterprise. So you put Revere on the map and touched so many veterans' lives. So thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you again for the beautiful dedication you did for my father and Claude Mercurio. That was just awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And actually, they did that I just put it together, and your dad and Mr. Mercurio's dad actually did all the work. I just made sure they got recognized for it, along with you and their family. And it's something I take pride in doing every year. It's actually one of the things that have affected me most in this job. In this time frame is not being able to memorialize our veterans. We were supposed to do 5 families, and eventually I'm sure we will get to it. But until we can do it properly, I just don't want to throw up a sign and have it be there. And I want to be able to memorialize these veterans like they deserve.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Mark, any other councilors have questions? Mark? Mark?
Yes, Counselor.
Yes. In the interest of brevity, I want to thank you publicly for the great job you do over there. And I think that is evidenced by when I'm in that building on another matter of inspectional services, and I see the people that come out of your office, there's no complaints whatsoever. They're handled very well, very efficiently, and very thoughtfully. And I want to thank yourself and your assistant for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilor Powers.
That's it.
I
Ashley?
think we got one more.
Yeah. I know.
Consumer Affairs.
Pardon me? I see her. She's had her hand up. Exactly.
Yes, Counselor.
Are we all set with her?
Julia Newhall indicated that she's speaking on behalf of Sudi, and she indicated that she has another meeting to go to at 5:30.
Bring her right up.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, Julie.
Hello.
Councilors, any councilors that have questions regarding the budget? Page 123, section 2.
Counselor?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Julie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just noticed that it looks as though you're down a person. Is that correct?
So we
Last year's budget?
we had to really reshift our approach in terms of our grant funding, and
Okay.
we're going to be getting a different position. So it's just a change in scope of work.
So there's going to be a position added in the budget?
Yes, it's this, but it's all of these are grant funded positions.
Okay. All right. And when do you foresee that position coming?
July 1st.
July 1st. Okay.
That'll be the starting date, Julie, for that person?
July 1st.
And what's the position? Because it's not, is it noted on here?
I'm not sure. The budget that I submitted, and Rich, I think, spoke to Kim. I'm not sure if it was updated after that, but it's for a program management position.
A program management position. Okay.
And I'm not sure if the direct service coordinator position is listed on your budget, but that position is continuing as well as at 10.5 hours a week.
Yeah,
Where is that? Where's that listed?
Was that a correction?
No, that position's listed. Julie's budget in the past had some money that was also appropriated from the city, but for fiscal year 2021, her operation will be 100% grant funded. So as she gets grants for different programs, she brings on the staffing that she needs to run those programs. So it sounds like one of her grants is being renewed, and she'll bring on a position as such, but it'll be a net zero effect on the city's budget.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Councilor Powers?
Yes.
I just want to throw you to, well, thank you for that, enlightening us, Ms. Newhall, because I think we had some side conversations, not you and me, but me and fellow councils about, we don't want to see really many reductions in this area too, because it's a problem area in our city still. It's not like we're just it's gonna disappear overnight, but Mr. Viscay, I love you. And, but something like Councilor Zambulo was mentioning the other night is when we look at positions and apples to apples, it's really challenging when you keep moving the shells around, and, we hear about a position that's going to be added and it's going to be added and it's not here, and it's in another department and it's in this budget or this grant. I get it, but if we had it in there last year and we're planning on spending that money, whether it's coming out of a grant fund or not, it makes it a little bit more difficult for us when we have to look into like 3 different departments to find it. So I would just appreciate moving forward that, we have the apples to apples comparisons. If we take something out and then we add it somewhere else, maybe it should be noted, like that position was taken out to $55,000, $60,000, whatever it may be, but it's going to be, asterisk, and it's going to go into another role. It just helps us. And I get it. Like you've done a good job, but
yeah, no problem.
Around in different budgets,
Like I said, I welcome the input, and every year we try to make a better mousetrap there. But in my defense, you're hearing about that position at the same time as I'm hearing about that position, and that's not a knock on Julia. It's just the nature of how the information comes in. So I didn't leave out a position that I anticipated was going to be there, but again, we'll work it out, and we'll try to. The grant funded positions are tough sometimes. The best way to represent them and how they flow through. It's again, happy to try to make it clearer.
It just feels like a shell game sometimes, especially when we move people from different departments. There's savings here.
Well,
maybe they won't realize it tomorrow.
I will say in Rich's defense, if you look at the budget, although there's 2 people there, all right, the of FTEs is 2.9. So you're not all wrong. I mean, you forgot to list that other person.
No, but if I made it
no
easy
big
on
deal.
them,
I mean, so I want to say that, it just forgot to mention the actual person. So the numbers seem almost right.
Listen, we don't have a lot of time to squeeze him. We're going to squeeze him this week. Okay?
Rich, it's all right.
It's I did send updated salary sheets on that budget as well that you got Monday, but that's all right. I'll take my licks.
I think,
I love you, Rich.
Excuse me, I think, Rich, and I'm being serious about this, but I think the nice thing would be if next year when we get our budget, the position could be listed right there, and then an indication that it's grant funded from one particular grant or another. Because I've looked at departments in the past, being on the council, and this is no reflection on yourself or Mayor Arrigo, but I've seen in the past, it's see somebody, their name there, and it's see them listed as let's say a particular title, and the salary would be like $25,000, and you knew they were making probably 80, and you'd say, how is that possible? How is that possible? And it was, you were never informed of the other $55,000 was coming from a particular grant or another source of revenue. So I think it's a good thing.
But we do indicate those other finances sources in the salary sheet, but the point's well taken. We will we'll certainly try to make it more clear, especially for our rookie counselors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone else?
Be nice, Jerry.
Listen, it's all right. We can go back and forth.
Can have some fun here, right?
It's right. You got to have some fun.
That's what it's all about.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
Got to have some thick skin.
Chinese food will be here in 20 minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Sorry, if I might, I'm not sure if this is a question for Mr. Viscay or for Ms. Newhall, but I don't know if you guys remember earlier this year, this calendar year, we had adopted a motion in the council relative to Narcan and pharmacies in response to the Walgreens incident. And I forget exactly where we left off with that, but is that reflected at all in any of the budget to either purchase some Narcan for pharmacies in the event that somebody ODs in, on the premises? Or can we just get an update of what happened with that?
I mean, I don't, Rich, if you want to speak first, but as far as the programmatic side of it, we actually reached out to headquarters at Walgreens just prior to COVID, and they agreed to have my staff go on and train all of their employees to do overdose prevention education. Right now, our Narcan we don't pay for the Narcan because we are through a pilot program through DPH, Department of Public Health. In that particular instance, and this was, I think, a unique situation where Walgreens has Narcan on site. They chose not to utilize the Narcan for whatever reason. I wasn't there. I just heard, part of the story, so there is an awareness at this point that employees need to know how to identify and respond to these situations, and they should have their own Narcan available in order to, reverse the overdose. But yeah, we're seeing a lot more overdoses taking place in non-residential facilities. And when that happens, we reach out to the local business. We talk to the management so that we can get in there and train the employees on how to, appropriately respond to an overdose and reverse it.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Julia. That's a good synopsis.
And just with regard to funding, I mean, the question that was asked of us is if we would be able to fund or supply if those particular stores needed to have it on hand. And my short answer was, I'm sure we could if that was something that could be arranged and worked out. I mean, we'll do our best to make sure that we can help with the epidemic there. But I'll leave all the logistics to Julie. But if there's something that comes about and we need funding, I'm sure we'll make it happen.
Thanks, Rich.
Any other councilors looking to speak?
No other counselors, Counselor Powers.
Okay, our next and final department.
Thank
is
you.
Consumer Affairs.
You're welcome.
Alan, are you here? Hello?
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Alan, good afternoon. This is probably the leanest budget I've seen yet.
I don't think we can trim anything else.
Alan, would you care to offer a comment or two on your department?
Yes. Well, due to the current financial situation, we're going to be operating the office totally on the funds received from the Attorney General's grant. The award was scheduled to be announced last Friday. The Attorney General's office is running behind, but I have received indication that there's no concern on our part. The office has been in Revere since 1979. So we are looking forward to receiving those funds, and Kim has offered to help me to see if there are any other grant opportunities and funding available to us to go forward. There has been a reduction in staff, and we anticipate that we'll be able to meet the needs of the residents and constituents we serve without too much difficulty. The office will be moving from the Parks and Recreation Building to the Senior Center within the next couple of weeks. And I think that will provide a more efficient workspace and actually allow for a little bit of greater awareness and accessibility to one of the segments, the seniors that we do an awful lot of work with.
Are there any counselors that have questions?
Mr. Chair,
Counselors?
if I may.
You certainly may.
Well, it doesn't look like we can cut anywhere here, Alan. So, you know, can you just explain a little bit more in detail what your office does and, you know, to the residents? Maybe some residents just don't know can have a consumer affairs office. Would love that explanation just to give them an opportunity if they do need some help, that's offered to them as well.
Right, certainly, great question. Well, the Attorney General established these local consumer protection offices back in 1977 and made grant funding available. Revere stepped up to the plate in 1979 and established the office in Revere. And primarily what happens is people call the Attorney General's consumer protection hotline that is staffed by Attorney General employees, and they file a complaint against the business. And based on where either the resident lives or where the business is located, each day those complaints are fed to the various local consumer protection offices. We receive complaints for 12 cities, from Revere up to Salem. We added 2 large cities last year. They added Everett and Salem, so that our grant increased. So what we try and do is work with the business that the complaint has been filed against to either recover funds for the consumer, to get work corrected that the consumer believes was not done properly. And the goal is to prevent this from going to small claims court. And in some cases, just having a neutral third party get involved is a successful way to resolve this for the consumer. We don't have any statutory powers. We can't order anything, but if the business responds, we try and work out an acceptable resolution to the complaint.
And that's great. I have one question from what you said. It looks as though we're waiting on, it's 100% funded by the state, and we're waiting on the number of what they will intend to give us. Take it. That number being, what has that number been in the past? And
well, last year the request was for 65,000, and they funded the office at 75,000. Excuse me. They requested 70. I requested 80 this year. I anticipate that worst case scenario we would be level funded at 75.
Okay, and with that being said, with such a lean budget, Rich, if I can defer to Rich or yourself or Kim, the difference, the delta between the two, between his salary and what will be grant funded, okay? Will that go into assisting consumer affairs with expenses, or he mentioned something about 2 people? Will that be, is there an appetite to try to bring on a part-timer for him?
I think
since he had
two part-timers, I think, in that department. Is
Yeah, I
that,
think the plan that Alan had put forward was to bring back one of the part-timers to help him out and then use the difference between the cost of the part-timer and the 75 grand to use it for supplies and services to promote the Consumer Affairs Department.
That would be the plan. Under the terms of the grant, the office is required to be staffed during the posted hours. And I can't be there all the time. So it would be a requirement that we have someone there. And the office has functioned. There's one part-time staff member who has been there for about 12 years. These two women come in every day on time and sit at their desk for 7 hours, handling these complaints and working for the residents that we serve. And they're paid at a minimum wage hourly rate with no benefits, and they are a tremendous value to the office. So we do anticipate some cuts in those number of hours, but we'll be able to survive.
well, that's good to hear. Thank you, Alan.
I just want to note that the city does provide the office space and some basic operational costs, but I think that the 75,000 at that level we will be able to work efficiently.
Thank you.
Any other councilors with questions? Hearing none. That will conclude the FY 2021 budget hearing. And we'll be back up there Monday evening, presenting the budget to the full city council for their advice and consent. Thank you all for attending. Kim, are you waiting? Did you have a question? Okay, no, because I saw you sitting there and I.
Well, it's only because all of these programs are under me, so I wanted to be here to support their presentation.
That's fine, okay?
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Richard,